Right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jessica Grant, Supervising Transportation Planner with the City of Santa Barbara. Thank you for spending your evening with us. Esta petición puede ser transmitida en español para Teresa Sorin. Puede hacer clic el botón de interpretación si desea escuchar la presentación en español. All right, so we're going to be discussing the Milpas Street at US Highway 101 Operational Improvements Project. What we're going to cover in tonight's webinar is background, project scope, construction timing, and what to expect during and after construction. If you have any questions at all during the presentation, go ahead and type that into the question and answers button, and we'll answer all of your questions or comments at the end of the presentation. So for background for this project, what is at issue is if you're traveling on southbound Highway 101, southbound direction, what we're experiencing mainly in the PM peak hours is backup on the main line from the Milpas southbound off-ramp onto the mainline freeway. This is a significant concern because if a vehicle is stopped on the main line of a freeway, then there's higher percentages for rear end collisions that typically do not have good results with the high travel speeds of freeway. So we anticipate this backup onto the freeway to worsen with the upcoming Highway 101 high occupancy vehicle and widening project. And when the highway project was analyzed for the environment, when it was going through the environmental review process, this was a mitigation measure to address this issue of backing up onto the freeway. And so in order to address that, there are operational improvements that we will go over that will occur basically from the southbound off-ramp to where there's the southbound on-ramp. So this section of Milpas. So just to orient you for this graphic, this is the existing Milpas traffic circle. This is in the black lines, is the freeway. And then underneath the freeway is Milpas Street. So this is South Milpas. So it'd be, again, right at the southbound off-ramp to the intersection of Milpas and Hutash, or right at the southbound on-ramp. And this is an image of all of the proposed improvements. And I will return to this image in just a moment. I'm going to break it up, but it basically involves widening at the Milpas-Hutash intersection, and also extending a center median right at the US 101 southbound off-ramp, and prohibiting a left turn onto Cacique Street. And then there's a bicycle improvement that would elevate cyclists for one block northbound along Milpas between Hutash and Cacique Streets. So with that, let's go into more detail of what that is all about. So again, the first scope of work of this project is to widen Milpas Street at the northeast corner of Milpas and Hutash Streets intersection. I'll show up a blow-up image in just a moment. And then also traffic signal modifications at Milpas and Hutash Streets intersection to optimize the signal phasing and to reduce wait time at the intersections. So what is happening in this image is, this is, so just to orient you, this is going southbound on Milpas. To the left here is East Beach tacos and the batting cages here. And this is the electric supply business at this corner. Right below us is the railroad tracks. And then this is the on-ramp to US 101, southbound 101 freeway. So if we were traveling again on southbound Milpas, this intersection is widened to accommodate a left turn lane onto Hutash. And then there will be 2 dedicated lanes to go onto the on-ramp at US 101. Right now, the lane configuration is shared where you could do a left turn on Hutash and then also the US 101 ramp. And with this change in intersection widening, this is the existing curb line, and this will have to move back. We're still within city right-of-way. And then this represents, if you follow my mouse, this represents the new curb line. And so the crossing changes. So if you were coming from Tri-County Produce, if you were walking, the crossing of the intersection is slightly changed there. And we'll talk about the separated bike lane, but in another slide, but this is also where you would access the elevated separated bike lane. As far as for the traffic signal, there's 2 dominant green phases for this. So one of the dominant phases is having the 2 on-ramp lanes onto the on-ramp of the southbound 101. That can run now with this project concurrently with if you had just taken the hook ramp to go northbound on Milpas, these 2 lanes can now run concurrently with the on-ramp lanes. There is a change where the northbound, when taking the hook ramp, before that you could make a left turn movement, and then that will be no longer. You would just take the Milpas southbound exit to again travel south on Milpas. And the other predominant green phase would also be the southbound Milpas. And then if you're coming from like Tri-County Produce or with the waterfront, for the northbound and southbound lanes running concurrently. So those are a summary of the operational improvements. And again, there will be a dedicated left turn lane, a phase onto Hutash, and that is the less dominant movement, mainly because this is a dead-end street here. Another part of the project is if you were going southbound again on Milpas, you took the southbound off-ramp, the movement that would be now prohibited, it would be that you couldn't do the east turn movement or left turn movement onto Casique into the east side neighborhood. The new movement would be taking the hook ramp to go into the east side neighborhood. If you were, again, going off the off ramp and you wanted to turn right on Casique Street, you can still do that. And of course, you can still move forward or go southbound on Milpas Street. And one of the things, also observations that's done currently is some people will take the southbound ramp and do a U-turn to go towards the Milpas roundabout. So that movement, it's prohibited now, but it will be continue to be prohibited. And again, this island would be constructed so that movement could be no longer. The other item that I mentioned is that we will be separating cyclists from the very busy roadway. It is just for a block, but this is higher speed vehicles along this with those getting off of the freeway onto Milpas Street. And we felt it was important to separate out cyclists from the faster moving cars. This is an example on top as an image of what that would look like. This was actually taken in Santa Monica as an example, but there would be darker pavement to show the bicycle lane, and then it would be adjacent to the existing sidewalk and at the same level of the sidewalk. And if, again, you would use this for the northbound movement, you were coming, say, from the waterfront, and then you would hop onto the separated path. And then to get back into the east side neighborhood, you would turn right on Cacique Street on the existing on-street bike lane, and then hop on the Alisos, the newly constructed Alisos Bicycle Boulevard. Or if you were had other destinations, you could continue straight, of course, on Cacique Street. So again, just to summarize all of the improvements as part of the project, I'll start at the left corner, as if you were getting off the southbound off-ramp from the freeway. And again, you can, with my mouse, you can go to all the destinations south along Milpas. And again, you can still do the right turn on Cacique. You can continue along Milpas Street and all the way down to the waterfront. If you were going into the east side neighborhood, you would go on the hook ramp and use the off ramp to go northbound into the east side neighborhood that way, or continue straight to the roundabout, whatever your destination is. And then again, the intersection is widened at Milpas and Houtosh, and that accommodates a dedicated left turn onto Houtosh. And then there's a bunch of traffic signal improvements to facilitate concurrent improvements. And then there's, again, the separated bike lane for this block that is at the same level of the existing sidewalk. And then as far as for bike route considerations for the future, we are looking at a similar elevated bike lane on the southbound Milpas side. And that is a little bit more complicated, needs more analysis, and we're looking to apply for a grant application for that. As far as for oops, sorry about that. As far as for the construction timeline, construction begins this fall is what we anticipate. And we anticipate the construction for these improvements to take approximately 2 months. There was some tree removal associated with this project that has already occurred because we needed to have it occur before bird nesting season, but there will be new trees coming along that section of Milpas. So what to expect during construction? We will have lane closures, mostly on northbound Milpas Street. pedestrian and cyclist detours, and any of the sort of paving work or striping work is anticipated at night. And what to expect after construction is, again, you will use the Milpas exit or the hook ramp exit to get to the Lower East Side. You'll experience better traffic signalization or synchronization and an improved bike route. And how to stay involved for this project. We do have a project webpage, and that you can subscribe to that webpage. And we also have an email if you have any questions that you have leading up to construction, during construction. Please reach out to that email address, and our project team will get back to you on that. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions you might have. And at this time, we will invite Michelle Bedard to help us with the questions.
Thank you, Jessica. Okay, first question was to ask, what about continuing towards the waterfront on the multi-use path?
Say that one more time, Michelle.
Question is to consider continuing this multi-use path south towards the waterfront.
Okay, thank you. Yes, right now there is a bike lane that once you get past the railroad tracks, and that's something that we could explore.
Okay, next question is, did the city consider adding a traffic roundabout at Milpas and Hootosh intersection? It says it seems like this would be the best way to ease traffic with so many streets intersecting there.
Mr. Bailey, do you want to answer that question?
I do. My video is not working right now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'll
Okay.
well now.
There we go.
Yes, a roundabout was considered, but quickly dismissed. The issue with a roundabout immediately adjacent to the railroad tracks is when there's a train coming and there's a need to flush the traffic away from the tracks. A roundabout doesn't have any type of control where you can prioritize certain movements over others. So with the need to flush traffic off the tracks in case there's anybody that's hanging over the tracks as a train's approaching, a traffic signal is the best solution in this particular application. But if not for the train tracks, it would probably function really well here.
Thank you, Derek. Next question. Is there a connecting bike path on Cacique between Milpas and Alisos streets?
Sorry. Yes, there's a when you're on the elevated bike lane on Milpas and you turn right on Cacique, there is a bike lane right there to go into the east side.
Next question. The hook off-ramp traffic will increase since a left turn onto Cacique from Milpas will no longer be an option. Have you studied the impact of traffic that will increase on this hook off-ramp?
I can take that one. Yes, we did. So that's part of the big picture. So as Jessica mentioned early on, the root issue here is traffic backing up onto the highway from the first off ramp. Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Jessica. So that red line there, you see that's traffic backing up onto the southbound off ramp. And then we found that depending on the day, 2/3 to 3/4 of the people that are getting off that off ramp are really trying to turn left onto Cacique into the neighborhood. And so that heavy volume right there is what's causing the backup. Yeah. And so if we take the traffic that would be turning into the neighborhood on Cacique off of that off ramp, you're spot on. That traffic is going to then have to take the hook ramp, which is the blue line right there. So if we go back to that aerial diagram that was there before, that showed the Milpas-Houtosh intersection. So that extra traffic that normally turns into the neighborhood coming to this intersection is the reason for the modifications at this intersection. And so in order to make this intersection function well, or continue to function well, that's why we have to add that extra southbound left turn lane, dedicated left turn lane that'll go from southbound Milpas onto Houtosh Street. Once we do that, we're able to have the southbound off ramp and on ramp, off ramp and on ramp running concurrently. So the intersection runs much more efficiently. So so we did look at the impacts, and this is how that extra traffic is being mitigated.
Thank you, Derek. The next question was to repeat the email address, and I'll just, I did type that into the questions and answers, but yes, thank you, Jessica. There is the Milpas email address. And then next question, is there a possibility to extend the raised bike path to the 101 undercrossing bridge?
Not with this project, unfortunately, but perhaps someday. I think the main thing that was important to connect with this project, this one block between Cacique Street and the Houtosh Street, which is the 101 southbound on off ramp, it just has such high traffic volumes compared to the blocks above and below it. So with all that traffic getting off the hook ramp and going north on Milpas Street just at higher speeds, it was really important just to provide that safety separation for cyclists. The movement that we're really trying to encourage is into the neighborhood on Cacique Street. To continue north on Cacique Street, people are heading into the roundabout, and that's a really challenging movement for cyclists. So we would really encourage cyclists to use the parallel route. And if there are cyclists that choose to use the roundabout, they're most likely more confident cyclists anyway, and less likely to need the extra protection.
Thank you. Next question. How do drivers going south on Milpas between Cacique and Houtosh, Milpas and US 101 South make the left turn into the businesses on the northbound Milpas side?
It's the exact same movement as it is right now.
Okay, next question. What happens to the Cornhusk Street and pedestrian lights?
They'll be relocated until they align with the new curb line, but the lights will be generally in the same position, just probably move back if the curb line is moving.
Thank you. Next question is, has the Historic Landmarks Commission been consulted about these changes? And says that they have been invested in street changes before.
We did not have to go through the design review process for this. This would actually be under the Architecture Board of Review in this section. And everything as far as this work is mainly flat work, and everything else as far as for the fixtures for the street lights, again, as Mr. Bailey mentioned, are the same. We did have consultation from a city review board for the street trees, and coordinated with the city arborist for that.
Thank you. Next comment questions is good that the bikes will be separated from the cars, but will they also be separated from pedestrians? It looks as though the bike path is on the same level as the pedestrian walkway.
That is correct. It will just be a pavement color change, and we will have stenciling. And I'm trying to get to the photo. So again, for the stencil, so if you're a cyclist, you would be again on the left-hand side in the northbound movement. Pedestrians could be either traveling southbound on this sidewalk or northbound, but with the concrete color differentiation to separate the users.
Great. Next question. If a roundabout isn't an option, is there a possibility of removing the slip lanes completely and make it a single crosswalk?
Ooh.
No, that's not possible either. The reason for those lanes is the turning radius for larger vehicles. If the slip lanes were removed, it would be a very tight turn. So the purpose of that little island is actually to shorten the individual crosswalk movements.
Derek, can you, for those that might not be familiar on the call, can you define what a slip lane?
Oh, sure. Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, if you can, with your cursor, kind of hover over where the train tracks are on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you're going north on Milpas and turn right onto the freeway. Yeah. So that right turn lane right there, that's like a little slip lane. Yeah, so the real purpose for that slip lane right there is just because it is more than a 90-degree turn. It's so that larger vehicles can make that turn. If not for that slip lane, the crosswalk would be from Jessica, I'm trying to describe where. Yep, if you can, from that ramp right there. No, right there. So it'd be if not for this,
right there.
The crosswalk would have to go from that ramp all the way across. And so that would be a very long crossing with lots of pedestrian exposure to traffic.
Great. Okay. Next, what are the implications of widening an intersection, creating a longer distance for pedestrians to cross? Is it safer than before? Does it fit within the city's Vision Zero goals?
Yes, generally, you're right. If we were to widen an intersection at most locations, it would result in a wider pedestrian crossing. But this pedestrian crossing is being shifted a little bit. The distance is about the same. And there's no what we call permitted movements that would cross that crosswalk at the same time that pedestrians are traveling. So overall, I'd say from a pedestrian perspective, this is Vision Zero neutral. The real benefit here is the elevated cycleway that'll get the cyclists off the street on this one particular really busy block. So that particular aspect of the project is definitely consistent with Vision Zero. And we did incorporate a curb extension on the Hutash side of the northeast corner, just to reduce that pedestrian crossing distance as much as possible.
Thank you. Next question's a two-part question. Why is there a dedicated lane to Hootosh? And is this due to the proposed hotel on Hootosh? If so, is the hotel contributing towards this project?
No, it doesn't have anything to do with the hotel. That left turn lane, the purpose of it is so we can change the traffic signal sequence. Because of the need to provide left turn access from southbound Milpas Street onto Hootosh, the way it is right now, if somebody wants to turn left onto Hootosh, that movement that Jessica was just highlighting right there, yeah, it happens from the same lane as people get onto Highway 101 with. And so because of that, the traffic signal sequence that we have to use separates the movement. So the on-ramp and the off-ramp go separately. And that really affects the wait times at the intersection. And so, like I mentioned earlier, with the changes at the off-ramp above Cacique Street, sending more traffic down this way, we do need to operate this traffic signal efficiently. And so by separating that extra left turn lane, we can run the on and the off ramp traffic signals at the same time, and it becomes a lot more efficient. That makes sense.
I'm trying to hover the mouse.
Yeah,
It's
you're doing a great job.
This movement coming from the hook ramp. And then those that are traveling southbound on Milpas that want to get onto the freeway, that movement, those are the two movements that would be able to run concurrently. The other concurrent movement would be southbound Milpas and northbound Milpas.
Okay, next question. How will you prevent bicyclists from going under the underpass?
I guess which underpass? Northbound on Milpas or eastbound?
I believe it'd be probably beyond the proposed elevated bike path that ends at Cacique.
Cyclists are still allowed to go northbound on Milpas, or they can turn right and go under the underpass into the lower east on Cacique, the lower part of the east side. Both are legal. Both will continue to be legal. It's just from a safety perspective, we would encourage cyclists to use Cacique and the parallel route to Milpas. But if cyclists choose to do so, they can go north.
Okay, thank you. Next question comment says, looks great. Raised bike paths on both sides of Milpas would be great to see. One thing I have noticed as a resident that takes these off ramps, I usually take the second exit when the first one is full. Would this just double up traffic on the only access to the lower east side, pushing the problem down one more exit?
Yeah, that is a really good question, and that's really the purpose of the widening at the southern of the two intersections, right north of the train tracks. Yeah, so Jessica, do I dare show the traffic signal sequence drawing?
Let's share it, Derek.
Okay. All right. I put this together just to highlight the way the traffic signal works out there, and we were debating whether or not to show it. It's kind of traffic engineer geeky. The top row shows the sequence of the traffic signal currently, and it's basically divided up into 5 different stages. There's stage 1 where the southbound left turns go. Stage 2, where southbound Milpas and northbound Milpas go. Stage 3, where the off-ramp gets a green light. Stage 4, which is a low volume movement, but it's the Hootosh Street gets a green light. And sometimes that movement gets skipped because there's no traffic there. And then stage 5, northbound and southbound go again. So that movement gets served twice.
And the green arrows represent the green phase. The black arrows represent when the traffic is stopped.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. And when you have a traffic signal that has a lot of different stages within the sequence like that, everybody that's at a red light at that intersection has a longer time to wait until it cycles around to serve their movement. And so what the changes do, and by adding that second left turn lane, if we go down to the bottom row, the first stage would be to serve Hootosh, but again, it'll probably get skipped most of the time because it's a low volume movement. The second sequence is southbound Milpas will go, including that left turn lane to get onto Hootosh. Yep. But again, that's probably going to be a very low volume movement. So that movement will probably get skipped quite often. And what will happen is on stage 3, you can see the southbound left turn to get on to Highway 101 and Highway 101 off ramp will both go at the same time. Yeah. And then stage 4 will be southbound Milpas and northbound Milpas going at the same time. And it'll probably just flip back and forth between these two stages of the sequence because most of the time Hootosh is being a dead end street, probably not going to have traffic most of the time, or if it does, it's just going to result in a really short green light. So because we're just moving back and forth between these two sequences, there's a lot less waiting time for everybody that arrives on a red light.
Okay, next question is, will the city need to acquire a portion of the property at Milpas and Hootosh for this project?
No, quite some time ago, there was property acquired where you can see the widening. The property line is actually already in place to do this widening, so there's no additional property required. That first number of feet in front of California Electric is city right of way.
Thank you. Next question, do we really need 3 left turn lanes? There isn't another place in the city with 3 left turn lanes.
That's accurate. And as I mentioned, just without that left turn lane, it just has a really negative effect on the traffic signal sequence, and it would cause a lot of wait time.
Next question, it's a little, gonna think the question they're trying to ask is, will the left turn lane, if you're taking the northbound exit, coming onto northbound Milpas, will this left turn lane be removed to go to south Milpas?
Yes, that is correct. So if you took the hook ramp, this movement as shown with the mouse would be prohibited.
Next, how will you educate the residents of the Lower East Side about the need to take the second southbound exit, especially before the project starts, during, and immediately after construction?
Continued outreach. Right now we're about maybe a month or 2 out from going into the construction phase, not physical construction, because physical construction is probably planned for fall of 2024. So we will continue to have messaging to the East Side neighborhood about this. We think it's probably all it is doing the movement once and realizing you can no longer do the movement, and then taking the appropriate off ramp,
Okay.
which would be the hook ramp to go into the Lower East Side neighborhood.
Next question is getting to the purpose of the project. And the question is the purpose of this project to alleviate street traffic and 101 backup traffic?
Yes, as stated earlier, this is I'm going to get to a graphic that This is the movement of concern. It's right now, mainly in the PM peak, is that we are experiencing backup on from the 101 southbound off ramp on Milpas to be backed up onto the main line. And so that's a current issue, but it's going to be exacerbated when the 101 freeway HOV widening project comes in. So we'd experience that more. And so in order to address that, we needed to do both physical changes to this stretch of Milpas and traffic signal operational changes. So we would not experience that backup on the main line, which is, yeah, it's a serious concern.
Okay. Next question. What is the projected cost of this project?
Derek, do you have the number?
I don't. Let me look it up right now.
Okay.
Michelle, if you want to go on to another question.
Okay, sure.
And then while Derek's getting the number, this is because it is a mitigation for the Highway 101 project. This is being funded with Highway 101 reserve funds and coordinated funding with SBCAG and Caltrans.
Okay, I'll move on to the next question, and then Derek, let me know when you have that. Next question, other than the no left turn sign, is there anything else to prevent cars from turning left onto Cacique? Just because, or just based on how many people already do illegal U-turns on the existing exit, I don't see people respecting the sign when there is no opposing traffic.
There will be a physical median in the place of the southbound left turn lane right now. So that left turn lane will, you won't be able to physically access it anymore.
Okay, next, how wide will the sidewalk be for the pedestrians walking north and south?
The southern part of the block will be, I believe, 6 feet. As it gets closer to Cacique Street, I think it's 5. I think the bike lane and the sidewalk are 5 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Next question, will the pedestrian signal be on demand, or will it always turn on for every cycle? How long will the crossing last?
Good question. During the daytime, it will likely come on every cycle. Overnight hours, when the signal operates on demand, it will probably require a push button activation. The pedestrian flashing don't walk time probably be about 16 seconds.
Next, do cyclists need more room on the path than pedestrians?
It's I think we gave again about, as Mr. Bailey mentioned, about 5 feet for walking, 5 feet for the cyclists, and that is enough for essentially single file / a little bit of doubling up for another cyclist. And the chances, if there was a lot of pedestrians at one time or a lot of cyclists, it's probably not right at the same time. So because they are flush, you can move temporarily into the lane to allow for more room.
Jessica, I found the cost estimate here.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
So not including the traffic signal work, it's about 1.5 million. So probably I think it's a couple $100,000 for the traffic signal pole relocations and whatnot. So
Derek, just to follow up, is that covered under, how is it funded? Can you get into?
That's funded through SBCAG through the 101 Highway 101 reserves. That's a funding source for the mitigation projects.
Thank you.
And so that's I think our cost is the engineering estimate, and it still goes through a public bidding process.
And it's probably worth adding too that the public's probably noticed adjacent to the Highway 101 construction all the way down through Montecito and Carpinteria, there are projects happening off the side of the highway. Recently, there was a roundabout just completed at Coast Village Road, and brain fart. Olive Mill. Sorry.
Olive Mill, yes.
And then the further on down, it's San Ysidro and North Jameson. And there's similar projects all the way down. And that's if you think of the Highway 101 project, what's happening is it's going from 2 lanes in each direction to 3 lanes in each direction. So the capacity of the highway is increasing by about 50%. So if there's potentially up to 50% more traffic using the main line of the highway, you're also going to get more traffic getting on and off the freeway at the on and off ramp. So in order to make sure that the main line of the highway is functioning properly, you also have to make sure that the on and off ramps and then how they intersect with the local street network are also functioning well. So this project is similar to those projects to the south, like the roundabout projects and whatnot, just to make sure that the entire network is functioning well when the Highway 101 project is complete.
Thank you. Next question. Where does the pedestrian movement fit in to the traffic movement diagrams?
Derek, do you want me to go to the signal diagram?
Yeah,
or do you
yeah,
want
if
me
you
to
don't
stay?
mind.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll look down on the bottom row, the new traffic signal sequence. So it would be with number 4. So when northbound Milpas and southbound Milpas have a green light, that's when the pedestrian walk light will be on. So the other good thing about this layout as well, under the sequence up top, again, there's so many sequences that if you, or so many stages to the sequence, that if you arrive just after your movement, you'll have a while to wait until the traffic signal cycles around to move you again. As we mentioned on the bottom row, the traffic signal will probably spend most of the time just going back and forth between 3 and 4 because Hutash Street is such a low volume street. So the walk light will get brought up more frequently and be less pedestrian delay time as well with this layout. Less delay for everybody.
Next item, just a comment stating that the raised bike lane is fantastic. Thanks so much for including it and hopes to see more of those throughout town.
Thank you.
Next item, question, will Hutash Street still be low volume when the new hotel is operating?
Yes, have you heard any timeline on the hotel, Jessica?
We have not. I was just for those that might not be familiar with is this is Hutash Street between Milpas and the freeway, and then that's a dead end here. And it's mainly industrial uses now. There was a proposal for right where my cursor is to be developed with a hotel, and it did get planning commission approval for the coastal development permit. And then I believe we've seen it for just one round of plan check during the building plan reviews. And I don't think we've seen it since. So I don't know the latest status from that. And that was probably about a year ago.
I think we've seen it twice.
Twice, okay.
Through building permit.
So we'll have to, if that person on the call yeah, interested, we could follow up if we could contact the applicant if there's a better timing for that. But getting back to the question is, will the hotel change traffic conditions or that type of thing? The answer is that no. From a congestion standpoint, we do look at that as for analysis during our project reviews, and the anticipated congestion is within the approved limits for per our general plan guidelines for level of congestion.
Thank you. Next comment says, thank you for considering bikes and pedestrians as a top priority. It really means a lot to us.
Thank you.
Next question, what is the Highway 10 HOV highway widening project, and when is it expected to start?
Yeah, good question. So I guess we should be more mindful of the acronyms that we use. HOV stands for high occupancy vehicle. So in other words, a carpool lane. The project is adding a carpool lane. It's under construction right now, so it will extend from Ventura County through Carpinteria. And those sections are already completed, up through Summerlin, Montecito, which is in construction right now, and then eventually tie in just north of the Cabrillo interchange. And so it'll be 3 continuous lanes in each direction between Santa Barbara and Ventura. So
that's about a 16-mile stretch all the way down to Ventura. The graphic that I'm showing here just shows from within the area that's within Santa Barbara County.
Jessica, do you want to mention the schedule for the segments D and E that they're working on right now?
Yeah, so D, that's under construction, has begun. All the best source for the most up-to-date information related to this project is sbroads.com. SB as in Santa Barbara roads.com. And it's a really great website. And if you ever have any questions or concerns, they do have a way from that website to accommodate that. And then as far as for the segment E that I'm circling right here, that falls within the city of Santa Barbara's limits. And that is partially funded right now. And it's anticipated to begin construction for the portion that's funded, which is roughly at the Olive Mill exit where the new roundabout just went in, to about Hermosillo Road. So it's both the north and southbound at that section. So that is anticipated to start construction later this summer. And then they're still seeking funding for the remaining part of segment E. And that would include reworking of the 101 Cabrillo interchange. Then that's the last remaining piece to be funded. All other segments have been funded.
Thank you. Next question comment is regarding to training residents in terms of these changes. Comment says, has doing it once actually proven to be enough in terms of training residents? Had a lot of trouble with that with the Aliso Street project. We haven't had the experience of that philosophy being very effective, and the city has not been transparent in terms of sharing accident numbers that occurred during the process. Is there anything else you can do to create more positive outcomes?
So for again, for this project, as far as remembering that there would be no left turns on Cacique, I guess it would be person specific until there's the learning curve for that. We think it would probably be about one time and then you change. But as longtime residents, and when you've been here for decades and decades, we're all creatures of habit and tend to pick similar routes to our destinations. And so it might take more than one time for that. And then for the Lisos, for those that are not familiar, that is a, it's not finished yet with construction. That's a bike friendly street, so a lower volume street. And that serves as the parallel route to Milpas. That is something that was communicated by residents as a strong need during the bicycle master plan update. And so once construction is complete for that project, it takes about 3 to 6 months for travel patterns to settle in. And there are more traffic, we call them traffic diverters along that corridor. And it's a little bit more of a learning curve on that, just because it covers several blocks within the east side. So there is a higher learning curve, like we said, and it takes about 3 to 6 months for the travel patterns to settle in for that.
Thank you. Next question is, will the street and pedestrian lights be repainted?
Yes, we're planning to have these 2 blocks between the railroad tracks and the Highway 101 overpass on Milpas Street repaved. And so when the repaving happens, all the lines will be redone as well.
Next is a comment, says, great job, team. Thank you for this informative overview.
Thank you.
Next, also a comment, somebody commenting that segment D of the highway project will be complete in 2026.
Thank you. I think we have a couple of representatives from SBCAG and Caltrans, and thank you for attending this webinar tonight. Thank you for that information.
And at this point, the final question right now is, driving north from Cabrillo Boulevard, should Milpas Street between Calle Puerto Vallarta and the freeway on-ramp be widened? There's only one lane and a cluster many times during the week and weekends.
That's a really good question. So that's, for everybody unfamiliar, that's right in front of Tri-County Produce. That's the block between Calle Puerto Vallarta and up to the train tracks and the Highway 101 on-ramp. It's possible to widen it, but the major obstacle there, well, there's 2. One, the city doesn't own enough property to add that, so it would require some property acquisition from Tri-County Produce, and that would be very expensive. Just land, especially as you get closer to the coast, is very valuable. But the other obstacle is the railroad crossing and the amount of time and money that it takes to get permission to cross the railroad or make modifications to a crossing, like widening it, is incredibly expensive. So if there's ways that we can make the intersection operate more efficiently so that we can function with 1 lane instead of 2, that's highly desirable. And so that's part of the motivation here is by improving that traffic signal sequence, the northbound Milpas Street is going to get a green light more often and for longer than it does right now. So that will reduce that need for that second northbound lane.
Thank you. And that's currently the last question we have on the Q&A.
All right. So again, if you're like me and you always think of questions after after webinars, then feel free to reach out with your questions at Milpas Highway 101 at SantaBarbaraCA.gov. Just general information, if you want to follow for future announcements associated with this project, please go to SantaBarbaraCA.gov /Milpas Highway 101. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us tonight. We really appreciate it. Just love all the questions that you've had tonight. These are great. And if you want to talk about it more, we will also be in person at Franklin Elementary at 5:30 next Wednesday, which I believe is the 28th of February. So feel free to come by, or if you know any of your neighbors that missed the webinar tonight, again, encourage them to come to the in-person meeting next Wednesday. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Jessica, do you want to mention, sorry, the
yeah.
webinar will be posted online on the project website as soon as possible, generally within a couple days.
Yes, we'll hopefully have it up and running early next week. And that's another way to share information as well about this project. So thank you.